Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a videocast and podcast by univrm.com. Today is one of our current event news articles titled Unemployment Disaster. There are many current event news articles about the economic crises in the EU on banks, deficits, politicians, and fiscal policies. The true disaster of the current economic crisis is unemployment. Unemployment levels exceeding previous records, creating incalculable misery and harm to society. Young people seeking work are unable to find employment of any type. Being young is never easy. Being a young European has rarely been more stressful. 28% of Italians between the ages of 16 and 24 are unemployed. Others are struggling to get by on unpaid internships or poorly paid jobs with little security. Italy's new Prime Minister, Mario Monti, has vowed to help the younger generation, promising among other things to help them start businesses, which is political bullshit and lies so blatant he must be channeling US politicians. But as austerity bites deep, the future is uncertain, even terrifying for many. In an advertisement, please remember univrm.com is offering a new science fiction series titled Change Hope, released as a series on a chapter and book-by-book basis like the old Amazing Stories magazine. Change Hope available in all ebook formats, and as an audiobook you can purchase by going to www.univrm.com/downloads. Eurozone unemployment is at a record. According to Eurostat, the EU Statistical Office, 16.3 million people are out of work in the 17 countries using the euro. The story of a lost generation is becoming the scandal of a continent. Young people in other countries, suffering at almost double the rate of their Italian counterparts. In Spain, 51.4% of those aged 16 to 24 are jobless, and in Portugal, 53.3% of those aged 16 to 24 are unemployed. In Greece, the figure is 44%. The greatest victims of Greece's economic crisis have been its youth, men and women who never knew the boom times but must now bear the brunt of one of Europe's harshest austerity programs. With unemployment at a record, as the debt-choked country endures a fifth consecutive year of recession, nearly 44% of the 907,953 out of work are between 15 and 24. For the first time since the 1960s, the jobless rate overall has edged above 19%, according to data released by the National Statistics Office in November. 4 out of 10 without work are young people, although it being now 4 months later, with ever more businesses closing, the figures are undoubtedly worse. Lack of job prospects and the absence of vocational training to redirect the newly unemployed, fears of impending economic collapse, and warnings that it may take 10 years before the service-oriented economy even begins to recover have spurred many of the brightest and best to look abroad. The exodus has sparked a brain drain that could have a devastating effect on the country's future growth. Tens of thousands of young Greeks have moved overseas in the last 2 years. According to figures last week, 51.4% of 16 to 24-year-olds in Spain are now without work, as the total unemployment passed 5 million. This group of young people have often been called the best educated generation in Spain. It also faces grim futures. Even if they are lucky enough to get a job, most of them, around 60%, have to live on low salaries with little job security. The usual best options are internships or temporary contracts that allow the employer to fire them without difficulty. This situation is now critical, as indicated by Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy's plea last week to Brussels. He demanded greater realism from Brussels over Spain's attempt to cut its deficit. Austerity is sending Spain back into recession or worse. 10 years ago, a new term created describing young people who earned less than €1,000 a month, the mileuristas. Unemployment at current disaster levels makes this disparaging term an unattainable aspiration for most. Portugal, like its neighbor Spain, faces equally dire predicaments. As an advertisement, please remember univrm.com is offering a new science fiction book series titled Change Hope, released as a series on a chapter and book-by-book basis like the old Amazing Stories magazine. Change Hope available in all ebook formats, and as an audiobook you can purchase by going to www.univrm.com/downloads/. You can subscribe to our articles via podcast at the iTunes Store by searching for univrm.com. You can also listen or subscribe to our articles via videocast or podcast on YouTube on the UNIVRM channel. This has been a videocast and podcast by UNIVRM, and we look forward to bringing you more in future.